Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello, and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, and this is the show where we help you understand everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm really excited for today's topic because we're going to be talking about bundles. Now, for those of you in the subscription space, bundles is just one of these confusing, annoying things that I would like to chat with you about. I've had several conversations in the last week. I've had to record several screen shares trying to explain that actually bundles can be a lot less complicated than you think. So I want to set the stage because it doesn't really matter if you're a small brand. I've explained this to a brand doing over 30 million a year in revenue, a smaller brand under $1 million in revenue. The problems are the same. The concepts are very, very similar. So let's kind of dive in right now. So when we're thinking about bundles, a lot of us are being, I'm hopefully, well, not necessarily hopefully, but you're probably thinking about some bundles app on Shopify and the ability to take multiple products together to create a bundle in the cart. And there's a lot of compelling reasons to want to use bundles. I think when we're talking about the ability to track inventory is kind of one of the most prime use cases. So what this means is if I'm selling a cleaner detergent, two different types of detergent that go together, okay? And I have these on a subscription. They're separate SKUs, but I sell them as like a 2-in-1 pack, right? So a bundles app would allow you to track the inventory of both every time you sell one. So if I sell one 2-in-1 pack, I'm going to have a bundles app that is going to help track the inventory of those two individual items, right? So that's a very simple way to think about how we can approach bundling is I want to create a product on my store that is comprised of multiple other products, right? So you could think of this like, say, a starter kit could be a coffee maker, a bag of coffee, a coffee mug, and some creamer, right? You could create a bundle out of those separate SKUs so that there's a single bundle that lives on the store. Now, where things start to get a little bit interesting is when I'm beginning questions about people feeling like they need to bundle the same SKU. So for example, I've used a lot of, talked a lot about acquisition recently related to like how we want to try to sell bulk options on subscriptions. And I want to be very clear when I differentiate between bulk and bundles because they are two separate things. But the mistake is coming up where people are asking, hey, I'm selling protein powder. I want to offer 1 bag, 2 bags, or 3 bags. And what bundle app will allow me to sell 1 bag or 2 bags or 3 bags at a time? That's a common approach that some developers are using. And the problem with that is I'm trying to sell the same SKU on the website and use a bundle to try to create this option for quantity 2, quantity 3. Now, the reason this is a problem is because subscription apps don't do great with bundles. There are certainly a lot of use cases where they can, like the coffee starter kit I mentioned. A subscription app is going to be really good at saying, okay, the coffee maker, the mug are not subscription items. We're gonna strip those out, and then we're gonna keep the bag of coffee and the creamer on a subscription on a recurring basis. Okay. They can also do a really good job of understanding when we're adding, increasing the quantity of something, we can have rules that get triggered. So for example, if I want to set a rule where whenever there's a quantity 4 bags of coffee in a cart, I want to automatically add another 25% off or say a free gift. There are a lot of subscription apps that can understand those types of rules very well. But what they don't do well is if I've got 1 of a SKU and then I've got 2 of a SKU, why isn't that just quantity 2, right? They're going to see that as 2 separate, like I've got 2 bags of coffee in the cart, not a bundle of 2 bags in the coffee in the subscription cart. And that is actually hard for subscription apps to kind of handle and manage. And one of the limitations that you get into this is that subscription apps are really, really good at swapping between different SKUs. So if I have a flavor of coffee A and a flavor of coffee B and a flavor of coffee C, I could set up an SMS campaign or an email campaign where if you want to swap to try a different flavor, you click here and the subscription app will be able to swap from SKU A to SKU B to SKU C. It does a really good job of swapping between SKUs. But when you add bundles into this equation, you now have this extra set of rules, and it's fairly complex to the point where it's like a massive headache and you don't need to do it. So the secret, the approach, is actually understanding that you have a few more options in this quote unquote bundle process than you may have realized. So the first is that I'm going to actually rely on my fulfillment partner to help me understand what to do with some of these things. And the way I do that is actually setting up separate SKUs for different quantities. So what I mean by this is we're going to talk about coffee, just keep using coffee as an example. So if I have coffee SKU A and I've got quantity 1, that is one SKU. But if I want to offer 2 bags of coffee at a discounted price and I'm worried about maybe using a bundle builder or something, do not do it. Just create a separate SKU that is coffee SKU A, quantity 2. And then for the 3-pack, I'm going to do a third SKU that is coffee SKU A, quantity 3, right? I'm just using different names for these SKUs, because what's going to happen is I'm just going to have my fulfillment partner, when those SKUs hit the 3PL or warehouse partner, whoever you're using, they can just be told, you can program this in software. It's just a simple thing of just mapping the right amounts, is that, hey, SKU A quantity 1 is 1 bag of coffee. SKU A quantity 2 is 2 bags of coffee. And so the fulfillment partner just puts the right amount of coffee bags in the shipment. But here's the beautiful part, okay? When we use separate SKUs for those different coffee type A's, now our subscription app can actually do a lot of really cool things. Our subscription app can allow us to assign a different discount to those SKUs if we want, right? Because it's a separate SKU, so it can have a separate selling plan, which means it can have a separate or independent discount. Or we can easily swap inside the portal. It's really easy to go from, if I want to buy a special discount. So just imagine you log into a customer, you're a subscriber, you're going into your subscription portal, and you are normally buying a 1-pack, but you see a banner across the top that says you can save an extra 15% off if you buy 2 bags at this new frequency, right? So I can just click that and have that change and that swap update, because the subscription app does a really good job of differentiating between swapping from this SKU to the second SKU to the third SKU, okay? So just as a quick recap before I start diving in a little bit more of how bundles are being used in bundle builders, is when we're trying to build this process of trying to sell multiple quantities at a time, it's actually much easier to use separate SKUs. Now, for those of you at home that are thinking, oh man, Matt, my SKU count just went from 100 to 3,000. Bundle apps in many ways are doing the same thing. They're actually creating extra SKUs for you, yes, to try to make your inventory tracking a little bit easier, but it's often easier to manage from a quantity basis on that element, because each quantity can still manage its own variance. So if I just wanted to do a coffee quantity A and have 10 different coffee flavors on that as variants, I can replicate that same coffee SKU with all of the variants to quantity 2. So it'll track all the variants under the new SKU. So it actually keeps things fairly simple for you. You still are only adding an extra parent SKU, even though the variants might be doubling or tripling in size. So the point is, we're going to create a separate SKU that we can assign separate selling plans to if we need to, and that we can have just sitting on those pages. Now, from a customer-facing perspective, it looks like it's the same product, but on the back end, you're tying each option to a different SKU. And then when it hits the fulfillment partner knows how many of each SKU has that kind of like core product that needs to be shipped in that. And it's much easier, and you unlock a lot more functionality on the subscription side of things when you use separate SKUs. And honestly, it is just simpler to manage for almost any store, unless you're getting into the tens of thousands of SKUs. If you only have 10, 20, or even 100 SKUs, I would recommend this methodology, because it's actually just a lot easier to manage things this way. Additionally, if I wanted to look at retention numbers, conversion numbers, things like that, I'm actually going to get better analytics using separate SKUs, because, again, it's a lot harder for subscription apps to be able to understand the difference between one product or two products that have been bundled together because it just sees the same product each time. But if we put in a different SKU, the analytics are going to be more fine-tuned and are going to give us better information on how the different quantities retain over time. Okay, so again, that's the big difference between trying to use bundles to achieve what you need to do with bulk options, when the truth is you just need to manage it through Shopify or WooCommerce with duplicating a SKU and your fulfillment partner knowing how many is in each one. One of the other ways that bundles are used is actually with like bundle builders. And this is a little bit more complicated or sophisticated in the sense of, if you think of like, if you go to Dr. Squatch and you can build up your own, like say 10 set of fragrance soaps, right? So they have a process where you can choose the different scents up to a certain like limit. The other aspect might be, say, like I'm buying a bunch of different flavors of a product, say a bunch of different wigs, right? And the more wigs that I buy, the better my discount is. So I could create an option where I'm buying 4 different styles of wigs, but if I buy 6, then I have progressive discounts, right? Or again, the most probably simplest way to understand this is like a meal builder kit. So like you're supposed to pick 5 different meal options that are going to ship to you on a monthly basis. And so customers are going to pick through, hey, I want the steak, I want the chicken, I want the broccoli, those types of things, right? When we're building those types of bundles, we actually don't want to use your typical Shopify bundle builder. As far as I'm concerned, if anybody knows of one that's better or has a strong use case for these elements, please let me know. But you actually want to rely on your subscription platform's bundle builder at this point, because their rules are what's going to be in effect after the checkout happens. So like if you're using Atomic, is an amazing bundle builder. Recharge is now rolling out more bundle features. Skio has some amazing bundle features. You can also look into Stay or Loop, although I'm not as familiar with the bundle builders on those 2 platforms because of how I've used on the others. You can actually use their functionality as part of, say, oh, no, that's not true. Loop does have pretty good bundle builder. Now that I realize we worked with a client, we're doing that last year. So you can use their functionality to try to create some of these rules and checkout experiences to create these bundles. And so they'll allow you to have certain types of restrictions on the size, what types of discounts are being applied. And then on the back end, if people want to swap out items, it's their functionality because it's a subscription order at that point that allows you to do that. So when you're looking at creating build a bundle experiences, look to your subscription app partner for that. Okay. And just finally coming back to the prime use case for bundle builders is to create a new SKU that's comprised of other SKUs so that you can do a better job of tracking inventory, okay? All right, and again, the reason why I like the bulk option so much is because it converts better, has a higher AOV, and retains better. Please check out some of our recent doses when we've been talking about this a ton. That is it for this week's dose. Stay tuned for another episode of Subscription Prescription next Tuesday. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.